All right. Hello and welcome everybody to another edition of Colorado LTAP's Workshop Wednesday. We are here today joined by Kevin McVitie, our trusted friend and advisor. He is currently the director of CDOT's Maintenance Training Academy, and he's here to talk to you all today about the new CDL regulations going into effect on February 7th. So with that, I will pass the torch off to Kevin and he will guide us through this journey.
All right. Thanks, Cody. Thank you, Heather. Thanks, everyone else, for showing up today. Again, my name's Kevin McVitie. I'm the Maintenance and Operations Training Manager for CDOT. I run our Maintenance Training Academy and a whole host of other maintenance and operations related training programs. So the CDL entry-level driver training requirements, as Cody said, do go into effect February 7th. And we've all known about this since like 2018. And if you're like we are, you probably still haven't done anything about it. So I will give you kind of a quick rundown of what some of the changes are, who they impact, and I'll be ready to answer any questions that you may have as well. Before I get started, and I'll just go ahead and share my screen, but if you could just make sure your microphones are muted to minimize any interruptions on the audio side of things. And if you do have questions, feel free to either drop them into the chat or just go ahead and unmute your mic. We do have a pretty small group today, so I'm not too worried about it. If you do have questions, don't be afraid to unmute and shout them out. I do have a presentation that I'm bringing up right now. Can you all see that?
Yeah, you're good, Kevin.
Okay, cool. So this is basically a presentation that I received from Clear Roads, which is kind of a consortium of, I believe it's mostly Western states, but they do participate in a lot of transportation research. And they were kind enough to actually build the entire curriculum for the CDL ELDT training. If you do want to get your hands on that content, and I highly recommend you at least reach out to them. I can provide links to their website where you can request the training. They've already built it, so go ahead and steal it from them. Don't take the time and trouble and headache to build your own when they've already got this kind of built out. They also have train the trainer modules. It's kind of a complete package, and they are willing to share this with local government agencies. I did reach out to them and clarify that. You simply have to fill out a request form and they'll send you the content. I'll run through, this is basically like part of the train the trainer module, but it does have all of the introductory info on kind of what's coming down the pipe with this program. So again, this will just kind of cover some of the major provisions of entry-level driver training. It's nothing new. It's basically all of the training requirements that have been in place since about 1985 for new permit and licensees. So it's all the same training. Nothing has really changed. The ELDT rule changes that do go into effect in February basically just kind of outline who has to go back through the training. So this is federally mandated. It does apply to first-time CDL applicants, anyone looking to upgrade to either a Class B or a Class A from a C or a B, or anyone looking to add a hazmat, a passenger, or a school bus endorsement. If you have a CDLB or a CDLA already, and you're just looking to maintain that license, it really doesn't apply to you. This really just applies to folks either seeking a new license or seeking to upgrade an existing license. And it basically just stipulates that you have to go back through all the training again. I view this more as a refresher for those existing license holders than anything. They do specify they've broken it in two main parts, theory and behind the wheel. The theory is all the classroom training. They don't have any minimums on how long you have to sit in the classroom, but law of averages says about 60 to 90 minutes per unit. There are 30 units. So this is like a week's worth of classroom training and then probably an additional week's worth of behind the wheel training, just to give you an idea of how long is it actually going to take me to get folks through this. So plan on about 2 weeks start to finish. Again, it does go into effect February 7th. It's for folks getting new CDL license holders. You have to conduct all the required theory and all the required behind the wheel training. And what that means, like an organization like CDOT, we are training operators all of the time. Not all of the training is actually relevant to CDOT operations, but we still have to train all of our operators on all of the content. We can't pick and choose what's relevant to us. And the reason being that if we train someone and they get their CDL through us and we don't include all of the training, and then they wind up getting a job down the road with FedEx or Amazon or someone else, and they become an over the road trucker, all of those same laws apply. And if we didn't train them, it becomes a safety issue. So you do have to kind of conduct the training in its entirety, whether it's 100% relevant to your operation or not. All training providers do have to register with Federal Motor Carrier. That is a core requirement of the program. There's obviously a lot of paperwork attached to this. You have to register each site. So if you're like CDOT and you have multiple sites statewide, you do have to register each individual site, and you do have to identify your trainers and your testers. The curriculum does have to meet all of the requirements of the new regulations. And again, if you get the content through ClearRoads, which is what CDOT did, they've kind of spelled it out for you already. So we plan to simply use their content, and that way we're in compliance. We don't have to jump through a whole bunch of extra hoops to figure out whether our training is aligned to the standard. That being said, not only does the curriculum have to kind of meet the sniff test, but so do your testing and training facilities and all of your equipment. Which should be a given, but feel the need to kind of identify that as well. I'm going to skip through some of the, I guess, non-relevant stuff in here because this is a pretty long presentation, but basically, this is all federal standard. This is all federal regulation and stuff that, you know, if we have CDL operators, we're all bound by the same rules. So this is at the federal level, not state or local. Okay. Again, there's no minimum number of hours on the classroom units, but you do have to train to all of the components in its entirety. There are testing and assessment requirements. There is a little bit of levity in how you can conduct those tests. You can either do them after each unit, or you can do a comprehensive test at the end of all of the classroom. You do have some voice and choice in how you structure it, but there is a testing requirement, and then any trainee must score a minimum of 80% on the classroom portions of the training. The behind the wheel instruction is split into two components, what they're calling range and road units. The range units are basically your pre-trip. This is on a closed course, your pre-trip inspection, possibly like backing, loading docks, turning, all of the things that you do on a closed course. And then the public road units is basically your tester, your instructor riding shotgun with the trainee. Again, there's no minimum number of hours on these, but you do have to demonstrate proficiency in all of the skills that they outline in the behind the wheel units. Let's see, I'm just going to jump through some of these. They do kind of outline who the testers are, who the trainers are, what the testing sites are supposed to be set up as. Again, anyone as far as those testing, anyone who is looking to upgrade an existing license or obtain a new license is bound by these new rules. Anyone maintaining an existing license and not making any changes, they're not going to see any change. If they're just maintaining that B or A and not making any adjustments, the new training does not impact them whatsoever. Okay. Any questions on that? Because that seems to be kind of probably the biggest source of confusion here is who are the new rules really for? And again, it's limited to brand new license holders and anyone looking to upgrade. Any questions? Okay. So again, you do have to register your sites and your instructors through FMCSA, and all of that is done through their website. As far as the range, again, this is your closed course. They're identifying that basically an area free of obstruction. So again, your closed course training, your you have to have your instructor is essentially riding shotgun. All of the training that we've received through ClearRoads does also include the lesson plans. So if you do happen to get the content that you're going to use through ClearRoads, again, they give you the full package. They have all the tools that you need to deliver this. I think as far as local agencies are concerned, the big question that needs to be asked is this something that we're willing to take on and manage? Because there's a lot that goes into this. We're talking about 2 weeks of training, multiple testing locations, both in the classroom and in the field, and the paperwork that follows on the back end, because you do have to report back to FMCSA on all trainees and folks that you are testing for CDL. Okay. That public road.
Hey, Kevin, I have a quick question.
Uh-huh.
With those trainers, I'm in Pagosa Springs in the southwest corner, and we currently have some testers around, but the rule says the tester and the trainer can't be the same person.
Correct.
So are you seeing some of these current testers splitting in half in order to do that? Or how are you seeing that get handled by companies that are currently testing so they can continue to have a flow of drivers, I guess?
Right. Yeah. So I can kind of speak to how CDOT is handling it. We have testers in just about each maintenance section, and there's about 8 of those statewide. So we have at least 8 testers statewide. Those same people can provide training, but they can't train to the test. So if they're going to conduct the classroom training, they can't test any of the folks that were in that classroom. Okay. So we're trying to keep it separate where our testers, maybe on one day they're conducting training, and then with a separate cohort, they're conducting testing. So you do have to keep those groups separate because it is a conflict of interest. What they're trying to avoid is having those trainers teach to the test, so to speak. We are also standing up a group of certified trainers that are going to supplement our 8 statewide testers, and that way we don't have to juggle just those 8 folks, if that makes sense. So we're trying to do all we can to kind of keep those 2 camps as separate as possible. But that, again, that doesn't mean that the testers can't provide training. You just have to make sure that they're avoiding that conflict of interest where, they can train one day, but they can't be testing those same folks. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I just was wondering how CDOT does it is kind of what I figured was going to happen. But for real small entities, it becomes an issue where we were doing the training and then sending them to a test and
correct.
kind of able to do that. Now it's going to have to be outsourced, I guess. So.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, you just want to be mindful. You do have to keep it separate. with the, you can have your entire cohort kind of attend all of the classroom training with one trainer. You can't separate the road courses. So the range and the road, they have to be taught by the same organization, so to speak. So you can have some people do the classroom training like with CDOT, and then you could do the range and the road training, but the same organization has to conduct the range and the road training, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I got that. Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay. So I want to kind of provide a bit of an, just an overview. I'm not going to run it through this whole module in detail, but just want to make sure that folks understand, who the audience this is directed at, where to find resources, number one. And again, we're using Clear Roads. They've built out all the content for us. They've even provided lesson plans and instructor cues and handouts and things like that. They've been nice enough to create this. We're going to steal it from them and use it. You can conduct, and one of the questions that does come up, can we use simulators? Can we use virtual delivery means? And the answer is yes. So you can conduct all of the classroom training in a virtual format, and you can use driving simulators, but the driving simulator is not a substitution for the in the field training. So you can't use a simulator to actually conduct the test and conduct the road training. You can use it as a supplement, not as a substitution. Okay. With COVID and especially with Omicron these days, I mean, I know CDOT's probably had about 20 or 30 people get sick in the last week alone. Finding healthy operators is just as much a challenge as finding qualified licensed operators. We've been leveraging a lot of online training and will likely continue to do so even with this new CDL training. So a lot of our classroom training will probably be conducted in a virtual classroom. I'm going to back out of here just a little bit because I know we are on a little bit of a time crunch in here. I want to kind of run through what the records look like. So you do have to, once you register with Federal Motor Carrier, there's a lot of record retention, and a lot of us are probably still keeping paper records for a lot of these licensees. You do have to report back to Federal Motor Carrier and any new licensees as a component of this training program. There's a way to do it through their website, so it's actually pretty easy. But once you run folks through your training program, if you decide to offer this in-house, you do have to report back to FMCSA within 2 business days once they get their licenses. And that's just going to help them kind of keep all the records up to date, not only for your testing sites, but for the folks that are going through your training programs. Okay. I think CDOT has a 2-year requirement on record retention. So we will likely be keeping paper records in addition to the digital records that go through the training provider registry. In addition to that, I did mention that Clear Roads has built all the curriculum out. I have provided links to Heather, and Heather, maybe you and I can discuss how to get this shared with folks on the call. But I have a number of resources for folks to access all the federal rules, all of the content through Clear Roads. It usually takes them about a day to get back to you, but they'll either Dropbox or email you the content. They have all the syllabi built out. They have lesson plans built out. They have all the PowerPoints built out, and literally this whole program can be plug and play. So I think a lot of folks are kind of worried about, we have to build the training, we have to deliver it, we have to create all the testing. Clear Roads has done all of that for us, which makes this undertaking a lot easier to go through. I've been working on pulling all of these pieces together for roughly the last 2 months now. It's a lot of content, it's a lot of training, but at the end of the day, it's all the stuff that we're already doing. I think again, a lot of the misunderstandings or some of the big questions are, who does the new rule apply to, and how do we make sure that our organization's compliant with those new rules? With the content, just get into our structure. So the classroom, like I said, there's about 30 units, but again, this isn't the training is not anything new. It's all the training that we've been doing since 1985. They've just structured it and wrapped it into essentially a refresher training or a more structured training program than what some of us may have already had in place. So there are some non-driving topics in here that again may not be relevant to your organization. There's a lot of content in here, honestly, that's not completely relevant to what CDOT does, but that doesn't mean that we can pick and choose and not train to that. You do have to run through the entire program. So handling and documenting cargo, not really a CDOT issue, but we have to comply with the new rules. Environmental compliance, hours of service, fatigue and wellness awareness, post-crash procedure, communication, whistleblower, trip planning, drug and alcohol, and medical requirements. And that's basically what you're going to be running through in the classroom. A lot of this, honestly, is very, very relevant to those interstate drivers and those over-the-road truckers. There's a big safety component, especially with interstate truckers, and that's why the program is general enough to fit everybody in, but is definitely targeted to those groups specifically. And then when you get into the behind the range or behind the wheel training, again, this is separated into two groups: the range, which is your closed course, and then the public road, which is more of that observation, where the instructor or the trainer is riding shotgun with the testee. So your vehicle inspection, your pre-trip, straight line backing, alley docking, offset backing, and your parallel parking, and then coupling and uncoupling. The public road training is really more about communication than anything, but you'll be covering vehicle controls, shifting. There's that communication piece, visual search, speed and space management, safe driver behavior, hours of service, hazards, railroads, night driving, extreme driving, and this is a big thing for CDOT, I know, as with many of the other local agencies. Skid control, recovery, jackknifing. So that's kind of a quick rundown of what's included in the training, who the training is geared towards, and what our responsibilities are as government agencies to ensure that anyone we are training or testing, not only that our participants are compliant, but also that our operations are compliant with the federal standard as well. Heather, I think I did it in 20 minutes. So that was quick, down and dirty. I know there are a lot of questions. I tried to keep it short and sweet and to the point and not get kind of caught up in the weeds so much. I do kind of want first turn it kind of back over to Heather to see, is there any specific issue, concern, challenge for the local agencies that I can help address? And then for the rest of the folks on this call, what questions do you have about kind of attending to this, getting any programs off the ground? And I think the first question is probably, what do we do next?
Yeah, so can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, just making sure, wanting to step in and let people know what LTAP is doing and kind of what we have on our radar. Obviously, this is on our radar as a whole. We are creating a separate page on our website for resources regarding CDL. So Kevin, a lot of those resources you mentioned will be linked up there along with the recording of this. So if Kevin talked through it really quickly and you wanted to go back and revisit something, this recording will be on our tailgate talk and workshop, as well as our CDL posting. So you can reference that back. I'm going to try and squeeze the whole PowerPoint out of Kevin. If he'll send it over, I'll try and post that as well. But reference that page, because as more is known, we'll be putting up more resources. As always, we are a kind of a cooperative or collaborative group in the LTAP community. So if you see or hear something, please feel free to send it our way. In terms of where LTAP may plug into some of these changes, we are still looking into it. Certainly, train the trainer is attractive and something that we would be able to support. It may even be that we have, Martin, to your point, we're able to have some of those online trainings and then help assist with getting that same trainer out to the local agencies for the on-the-road trainings prior to the tests, and kind of sharing some of those costs regionally rather than local agency by local agency. So we're brainstorming a lot, open to any of your ideas as well, but hoping to come up with a solid plan here in the coming weeks. So again, make sure you're keeping posted to our LTAP blasts as well as online, and we'll be providing updates there. So I will step back. Thank you, Kevin, so much for being here. Really appreciate it. And I will sit back and see what questions may come out.
Hi, Kevin. I'm Scotty Hall from El Paso County. I manage the program. I registered us back in November through their program, and I haven't heard a word yet. I didn't have a trainer. I still don't have one specifically. We're going to have two of them, but I wanted to get registered. Is there a way I can check on that registration to make sure I did everything the way I should have done it? What link or who I could talk to?
And you went through Federal Motor Carrier's website to get all that set up, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. You should be able to check the status on that website. I don't know. Honestly, CDOT has not done this step yet because we are still working through just some of our own internal logistics to get all of our sites correctly identified and all of our trainers and testers lined up. So we are definitely dragging our feet on this piece. So I don't have firsthand knowledge on how that system is working, from a fully functional perspective, because all I've done is create my login. So I have my login account or my Federal Motor Carrier account, but that's all I've done to this point, just because we don't have all of our ducks in a row yet. There should be contact info on that site where you can reach out to Federal Motor Carrier directly and just check on the status. I don't believe there's a whole lot of kind of two-way communication through that site. I mean, once you register and once you get your sites identified, you should be good to go. And then any further reporting or communication would then happen through that site. I guess my best advice, don't expect a whole lot back from them right now. Once you've got everything set up and in their system, you should be good to go.
Okay, I'll just keep riding the wave there and see where that goes. I figure with the holidays and everything, that must be that. And I'm sure 9 million other people are trying to do this right now.
Well, we're a month away and we're all procrastinators. So shame on us for being the way we are, but such is life in the government world. So I'm sure they're slammed and just, like we are, scrambling, trying to get everything set up and ready to go.
And if I go to that Clear Roads, my trainer that I've picked out, we can get them going. We can get everything they need through that to be certified. Everything I need basically would come through that Clear Roads.
Yeah, so with the trainers, and this is a question I've been getting a lot, there's no formal process to certify your trainers. There are some minimum requirements that they need to meet, and though the minimums are they have to hold a CDL of the same or higher class, so you can't be a CDL A or a CDL B holder and be training someone for their A. You have to hold the same license or higher. You have to have at least 2 years of commercial driving experience. and you do have to have some experience as an instructor. They basically just want qualified people to be the instructors. They don't want someone who's just going to get up in front of a room and read a PowerPoint presentation. Anybody can do that. So they do want some skilled folks, but really those are the requirements. There's no like formal testing that they have to go through. There's no formal process to get those trainers certified. They just have to meet some minimum requirements of being a license holder and having some driving and some teaching experience.
Okay, and they can do both. She could be my behind the wheel, but also in the classroom as long as they're getting the scores, the information that they need to pass these tests.
Correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, trust me, I spent about 2 weeks trying to figure that piece out myself because I was like, well, they're saying certified trainer, but there's nowhere to actually do that.
Yeah,
All
that's
it
what
is
I'm
is
panicking over, that I need to have somebody already in the system, but it's
yeah.
just, and she's been my qualified trainer for 2 years now, so now it's just plugging it into this program.
Yeah, the organization, so when you go and register through Federal Motor Carrier, you're basically self-certifying that your organization meets all of the criteria, your trainers meet all of the criteria, and your testers meet all the criteria. It's on the honor system, but understand that you're working with the feds, and they also have the power to come and audit your operation. They have the power to revoke your privileges as well. So make sure you've got all your ducks in a row.
And I guess we've had, because I've got 2 CDL testers here and they audit us once in a while. So that process, you're right, can be a little sticky.
Right. Yep.
Thank you.
You bet.
Hey, Kevin, could you revisit if you've already done it, and talk a little bit about what happens up until February 7th? So if people are kind of halfway through the process or thinking of starting the process, I've heard some terms about getting grandfathered in thrown around. Would you talk a little
Yeah.
bit to that?
So basically, if you have folks in the process, so maybe they've gotten their permit, um, and maybe that's it. They have to complete any training, any testing, and get their license prior to February 7th. If they don't, they're bound by these new rules and they have to go through all of the training. So if you have folks that are kind of mid-process, do what you can to get that process completed in the next month. Because if after February 7th, they don't have that process completed, you effectively have to start the process over. So if they don't fully have their CDL by the 7th, they're going to be bound by the new rules and the new training that comes with those rules.
Thank you. I have heard a number of people saying, if they have their permit, they're grandfathered in and they're not bound by those requirements. So it's good to kind of set the record
Yeah, so my
straight on that.
understanding
Thank
is
you.
that they have to have their license before the 7th. So if they're mid-process, do what you can to get them through because once the new rules go into effect, they're bound by all of those new requirements regardless of their status.
You have any good fly-by-night schools that we can get people rushed through? Just joking.
Honestly, it's probably easier to get a vaccination card right now than it is a CDL.
Well, that's a question that I've been asked a couple times about this is,
Yeah.
have you heard anything about the precipitating event or lawsuit or what? I mean, we're at a position where it's almost impossible to hire someone with a CDL,
Yeah.
and then you're going to be signing somebody up for 30 hours of training immediately. I could see them coming in and getting a job with CDOT or a municipality just to get this done and paid for
Oh
as
yeah.
part of the employment. You know, it's
Yeah, we
I
are
don't know.
under no assumptions that anyone we hire is going to stay with us. And especially if we're paying for the training and the testing and the license at the end of the day, it's a big issue. And it's definitely a big concern on our end because CDOT does not pay the highest wages. And I mean, honestly, a lot of the local agencies pay more than we do. So we're going to be doing a lot of training, a lot of testing, and a lot of licensing, and probably only retaining a small percentage of those folks. And that's just the grim reality of it. What we've done is we've actually removed a lot of our qualifications for operator positions, with the understanding that if you come to us greener than green, we're going to run you through all of the training, all of the testing, and help you get that license, with the understanding that you're going to stick with us for at least a little while. But just we're all competing against each other, plain and simple. And we're not only competing against each other, we're also competing with private sector, which pays a lot more than any of the folks on this call. So I think it's just a reality of the job market right now. But we've removed a lot of those hiring restrictions to simply just get people in the door and get them interested in the work that we do first and foremost. So I wouldn't worry so much about what people might do down the road. Do what you can to get them prepared today, and make sure that your other operators in the field are safe as a result of that. It's probably my best.
I'll also add that this is obviously a hot topic across the country, and so there's a lot of chatter with the NLTAPA world, the National LTAP Association, and I've heard everything from retention requirements. So if you go through the training, then you're expected to stay whatever amount of time afterwards, and if not, you're agreeing to repay that time that you were there, to prevent people from jumping ship. That's been seen in other industries as well, where anybody is required to have a license or be certified in some way or another. So I'll keep an ear to that. And then in terms of, and then all the way to, actually, I caught wind today that people are submitting letters requesting that this regulation be postponed because of the workforce shortage, not only just with, snowplow drivers, but also school bus drivers, and just saying you're making it harder and we can't even get people in the seats. And now we're having to go through all of this extra stuff. So there's definitely conversations at every single level of it. There's an NLTAPA meeting on Sunday, where I expect to hear a little bit more on the topic too.
Yeah. And if I can just add on to that, it's not all this extra stuff. And I keep hearing that with our folks as well. It's not anything above and beyond what we were already supposed to be doing. If you weren't already doing those things, then yeah, it is extra. Basically, what the whole push right now is, we've standardized the training, we've standardized the process, so that if you go and get your CDL, the experience is pretty much the same across the board. So don't think that this is a whole extra heavy lift. It's the same stuff we've already been doing. It's just that it does impact folks who are looking to upgrade, looking to add additional endorsements. And we're basically just asking them to go back through the training again. Think of it as a refresher more so than extra heavy lifting that's required, because again, it's all the same stuff that we've been doing since 1985. With regard to delays on implementing the rules, they've already done that, honestly. This was supposed to go into effect about 10 years ago, and same deal. Industry pushed back and said, hey, we're already having problems hiring people. Let's hold off on this. And they did. And then 2 years later, safety got involved and said, hey, wait a second, they're talking about lowering the age for interstate now. That's a huge safety concern. We can't have that. We need to implement these rules now. And at that point, they put together the committee, the task force, whatever you want to call it, that drafted these new rules. And here we are today at the implementation stage 8 years later. So there's probably a very slim chance that anything is going to get delayed at this point, because they delayed it 10 years ago.
And we're a month out.
Yeah, exactly. Be prepared. And if you have questions, let us know. I've been working on this for a couple months now, and well, not quite a couple months, but I'm up to my eyeballs in CDL right now. So if you do have questions, I've probably figured most of it out. CDOT will also most likely be conducting train the trainer sessions. So if you do get your hands on the Clear Roads training or other training, and you have questions about how to implement it, what do we need to do with these tools, let us know. I'm more than happy to include local agencies in any of the training that we provide, just to get those trainers and testers up to speed on what the expectations are.
Yeah, and if you need to get in touch with Kevin as well, you can go through us at LTAP. He's on our advisory board, so we talk to him pretty often.
Yeah, LTAP is another program I've been up to my eyeballs in since, I don't know, we're probably going on 3 years now, 3 or 4 years.
Happily though, right, Kevin?
Exactly. Yeah, I keep coming back, so glutton for
Yep.
punishment.
Any other questions? Okay, well, Kevin, thanks so much for taking the time. And for those of you on the call, thanks so much for joining. We'll put the recording up for future reference, and everybody have a good afternoon.
Thank you. It was very informative.
Short